Okay. And then, all right, let's start on test to let her do the intro, if that's okay. Cool with that? And we're live! Hello, everybody. Welcome to PTZOptics Live.
It's an exciting day for us today, especially once again, for you House of Worship live streamers. We figured we were on a roll with our previous discussion, so why not bring in a great person to interview who really knows what he's talking about in this industry, in particular with the software that we were discussing earlier this week. So we have Doug Laws with us today. Doug, thank you for joining us.
Hey, Doug.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Before we jump into our interview with Doug, I just want to quickly tell the story of how this relationship kind of happened. Doug gave me a call and said that he was using Ableton Live to run the majority of the equipment in his church. And it took me a while to understand how it is kind of advanced, but it's so perfect the way he has it set up. Doug's running lights, cameras now, the Blackmagic switcher. There's so much going on. And I have a feeling, Doug, that when we get into our interview, it was kind of one thing and then another thing and then another thing. And now it's this like fully automated, amazing system with a touchscreen controller. So it took me a while. So I'm hoping we can break this down for folks, Doug, and hopefully share some of the knowledge that you've obviously kind of encapsulated into the perfect video production system, if you will.
Well, yeah. It works for us pretty well. So, I'm always like, man, I wish I could just clone myself and do all these different things. So it kind of lets me do that for a bit.
So Doug uses Ableton, and that's a picture of his laptop on stage. And we'll be interviewing Doug today. He's from the Keys Vineyard Community Church in Big Pine, which is one of the Florida Keys. We got our PTZOptics cameras working with Ableton, and this is one of those things where I had tried to have an open mind, and Doug was saying, if we could just control the cameras with MIDI notes, it would really make my life easier. And I went, why in the world would you want to use a MIDI note to control a camera? Because video and the audio worlds are sometimes very separate. But we were able to create both a Mac and a PC MIDI app, which is available at PTZOptics.com/MIDI for you guys to try out. And we're going to talk a little bit about how that works into a larger ecosystem for Doug's church. And then finally, we do have a free course at PTZOptics.com/churches where I've tried my best to explain what's going on, because I know Doug is a very busy person. He has to not only run his Sunday services, but everything that the church does. So I've done my best to try to put together a map of what Ableton is doing. So if you're interested in that, I put together a little guide, and hopefully it could help someone out there trying to do something similar. And I think that's it, but I wanted to start off by also mentioning that Touch OSC is something that you should probably be looking into, and Doug's going to talk about to us more detail. That was one of the most mind-blowing things for me. This is Doug's touchscreen controller, which controls everything from starting songs to starting a live stream on Facebook, Open Broadcaster Software, OBS, and tons more. And it was just incredible. It's a $5 app, I think. And I was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into all this with Doug. Mentioned a couple of things there, Doug, but tell us about kind of the evolution of your audiovisual system and how it kind of came to be.
Well, we've been working on it for years, and really all the automation stuff started probably a couple months before Easter of this year. I really wanted to get things really dialed in, get the lights moving, because before we just kind of have like one light scene going on, and that was cool. And we were manually running the lyrics. So I was like, okay, well, let's automate that. So by Easter, I kind of had that dialed in. And then afterwards, I was like, man, I wish I could do this. And it was, controlling my guitar rig. So I figured that out. And then it was controlling the Blackmagic switcher. And, I just kept looking up YouTube videos, and I eventually figured that out too with a couple different apps. And then, after that time, I was messaging you on the Facebook page. I was like, hey, can we do this? And then I think like 8 or 9 days later, you sent me the first demo of that app. So, it's been a lot of fun. And, I'm constantly messing with stuff and dialing things in. And, I enjoy it. And it really, when everything's working on a Sunday, it frees me up to to play guitar and sing, which is really what I wanted to do with all this stuff, was just to kind of be freed. So I can do all the technical nerdy stuff on Tuesdays, and Sundays I can play. So
that's an amazing thing where it's freeing you up to do what you actually love to do. We actually have some video that you sent us that we're just going to play on mute. It's like a 3 or 4 minute video, and we could just talk over the video and maybe I might even, Mike, I might ask you to pause at a certain time, and we'll just kind of dig into more detail on what's going on. But let's show a little clip from your church, because you gave us some behind the scenes footage that I think will kind of make this conversation come alive. And so Ableton is really like the heart of your system. I guess that was a decision that you made at some point.
Yeah, I saw a live stream of somebody controlling the lyrics with Ableton. I was like, man, we need to do that. And so I got it. That was a few years ago. And then it was kind of on a back burner. And then, like I said, Easter Sunday, I wanted to be really tight for that. So I was leading worship at youth group, test running it there. So I wasn't testing it like on Sunday morning and having things mess up. Because the first time you try to do a new thing like this, you're gonna have a routing issue somewhere. It's gonna mess up. So it's always best to test it at youth group, because they're really forgiving there. But yeah, kind of got that dialed in, and yeah. So that's the Touch OSC, and all that's really doing is controlling Ableton for me. So Ableton's kind of like the glue of all these pieces, and that just lets me touch Ableton not at the laptop. So typically I have one of my crew is running that for me on the iPad, so they don't have to be right at the laptop, and I have the laptop right next to me in case I need to do something in an emergency, or stop a cue if I want to loop something. So yeah, there's a lot of flexibility that it gives me. And, all these things happen at the same time, which is another cool thing that I really wanted to accomplish. And I feel like we did pretty good with that.
Mike, can we pause it right at that Touch OSC portion? Maybe scrub back a second. So we had a couple questions. We were able to show people what you were doing. And a couple of the questions that they were asked is, one, they wanted to know, how much time does it take you each week to set up your, because obviously each week is a little bit different. It's a little customized. How much time do you budget? Because I know, you're really busy with a lot of other things. How much time do you budget for maybe Ableton? And is there anything else that each week needs to be changed and customized?
Well, we do 4 songs every week. So that's kind of where the bulk of the programming time is. I have an Ableton template that does a lot of the generic commands for a service and stuff. And but programming a song I can do relatively quickly, and I can do it at the house. But if I had to say a certain amount of time every week, it's between 5 to 10 hours just on the Ableton setup for the week. And that does, our Saturday night service and our 3 Sunday AM services. So yeah, somewhere around 5 to 10 hours. Takes me a couple hours to program a song from start to finish. And it took a while to get up to that point. It took a little longer when I was still figuring things out, but a lot of the troubleshooting I've kind of worked past. I'm like, okay, that's how that works. And I can repeat that and idiot proof some things. So now that I'm there, about 5 to 10 hours, and that's, 5 hours I'm recycling songs that I've already got programmed. 10 hours I'm doing a couple of newer songs that need some extra attention. So yeah, somewhere in there.
And I'm completely new to Ableton, but just for someone else who maybe is brand new to Ableton, what exactly are you doing when you're building a song? Is it essentially backing tracks, and then you are removing the tracks that you are going to be doing on stage that you don't need to be supported on? Is that how it works?
Yeah, so sometimes they're called stems, sometimes they're called backing tracks, and you'll get like drums and bass and background vocals, some electric guitar parts. We usually have a live drummer, live bass player. We got a full band. So take the drums and the bass out. I'll kind of leave some of the synth work in there, and that just kind of creates a little more fullness to the mix. I'll have some like extra guitar parts, because sometimes I'm the only electric guitar player, and I'll probably be playing chords, and I'll let the tracks kind of play up the neck a little bit, turn down, and there'll be some like way in the background, some backing vocals too, that just kind of add fullness. You don't want it to sound fake, so you kind of want them in the background, but you do want it to sound full, and that's what they really help with. So it's not so much like karaoke, because we got a full band actually playing. It's just kind of adding to it. And that's just one very small part of Ableton too. But we do use it for that.
Yeah, so that's the cool part of Ableton. That's kind of, I feel like the core of it is the backing tracks and selecting the music. But then can you go into more detail about the kind of more advanced portion? I don't know if we want to jump into that quite yet, but that's kind of where it starts to get interesting is, are you creating new tracks to interact with other pieces of software? And can you kind of explain how that has kind of evolved?
You could definitely make your own stems. If I wanted to, I could record a guitar part, throw that in there. That's not too hard. You can get a MIDI keyboard, record some of your own stuff. I'm not doing that a lot. I do purchase our tracks from multitracks.com if I use them. They're professionally mixed and they're not terribly expensive, and I can just drag them in and they're there. So I'm not having to reinvent the wheel. And that's kind of my philosophy. I don't want to have to reinvent the wheel as much as possible. If we want to do a song that, say, doesn't have any backing tracks readily available for me, I can make our own click tracks. I can make our own guide cues with some of the templates that are available on multitracks.com. And I'll usually just add in like a pad in the background is what they call it. It's a keyboard sound that it's kind of hard to explain, but it's usually very reverby, very spacey, and that just kind of adds that fullness like I talked about. But you can use Ableton to do all sorts of cool stuff musically, and it's a great piece of production software because it does have that MIDI control. So if something can receive a MIDI note, you can control it with Ableton, and that's what I'm using it for.
So how many additional tracks after you have all of the music done are used for automating, for example, lights? I know you have additional one for cameras. I can't remember if there were any others, but what do you do? What is the process there? Because I know you're using Ableton in what's called arrangement view, so it's lengthwise, and so you're looking at the song and you know where the chorus is going to be, you know where each piece is going to be, and then essentially you're dropping down MIDI notes which are interacting with other pieces of software. I think Pro Presenter is another one. Can you kind of explain how that process has worked and what you found there?
Yeah, so it all connects through the network. Mac OS has a built-in MIDI network, and I think you guys talked about this in some of your other couple shows, how to get that routing. So that's how the routing is done, and I will have a separate MIDI track or audio track for every sort of element. So the click track gets its own track in Ableton. The guide cues get their own track. The Pro Presenter commands, I have 4 different types of commands that I send to Pro Presenter. We can just clear everything, just kind of kills it. We can select a playlist or an item, which allows us to point to what song that we want to have go on the screen, or what video or what slide. And then there's an actual trigger cue that will move it forward. So I've got 4 tracks dedicated to Pro Presenter. And then I just have 1 track for our lights. And the program that does the bulk of the lighting work is called Vista 2. It was recently owned by Jan's, and they got sold out to another company. And they're coming out with a new version soon too. I think the beta is available, so I'll be looking into that here shortly. But anyway, that does the lighting cues, and I can send notes from Ableton to a program called Bohm MIDI Translator that's spitting out a message that Vista receives to change the lights. And then we use Pro Presenter on another computer that's running some atmospheric videos on the stage, and I have 4 tracks dedicated to that. We use iPads for our chord charts, and I can send a forward and a backward command to it. So if I want to turn the page forward, turn the page backward, that's got 2. I have 1 track for my guitar preset changes. I have 3 for the video switcher, and now I've got 5 for our cameras. And then the songs will have different amounts of tracks in them. There could be anywhere from 6 to 12 to 15 tracks in there, and that's different per that. But I always work with a template, and that's really helpful, and that's how I save a lot of time doing it. And it's got to be the same every single time, and it works out super well that way. But that's kind of an idea. I lost count. I think there's 20 something just in the template, plus however many are in the tracks for the 4 songs.
Jeez, and so you've organized all of that, but the benefit is that now you can walk up on stage, click a start of a song, and it's just all automated.
That's it. It's, a couple presses on an iPad and all this stuff goes.
That's incredible.
So having a system with this level of professionalism, where did you get advice from for building that? How did you learn all of this? What's your background?
Yeah, I took a course that's available on multitracks.com taught by Will Doggett, and that's automating lyrics, lights, and videos with Ableton Live. And that was kind of the backbone where I learned all this stuff, along with, countless YouTube videos. Mm-hmm. And then I got to a certain point where I needed some extra help. And then I had a couple sessions from Will, actually Zoom sessions. And, he's the master of Ableton, at least for me. He's a certified instructor. I kind of just make it work for myself. But he was a definite help. And, my dad is the senior pastor at the church that I work at. So he's been very supportive and always makes sure that I got what I need to make it work. And, he lets me try out all this crazy stuff. So definitely couldn't do it without him. And my brothers-in-law are all very good at this. They're in a band called Fuel on Fire. And they kind of used Ableton before me and did a lot of stuff. So I kind of saw how they did some stuff too and was able to do that because of them too. So, those people really kind of helped me get to this point. And you guys building that app too for the cameras. Couldn't have done that without you. But I had kind of figured out a way that I didn't like to control them. I was basically converting a MIDI note to a mouse point and click with Boom MIDI translator. And I had 4 windows of the web interface for the 4 cameras we were using at a time. And I could point notes to each of the spots. I was like, this is not going to work, but it works. And then, yeah, I figured that out. And then the next day you sent me the MIDI app. So that was definitely a much cleaner way to do it. So,
How does the congregation respond to this level of setup? I mean, that's really cool for a church to have.
Yeah, I'd say our folks really enjoy it. I try to be fun. It's killer. And, we can have a lot of fun with it at big events. And, I can dial it back down for smaller events too. You don't want to have like a big light show for, like kind of a small session. So I can definitely dial it down. You don't really want that. But it's still, even in those smaller situations, it's nice to automate the lyrics and have all these other things working too. So, but yeah, I get lots of positive feedback from our local congregation, and I'm very blessed to serve the church that I do.
Got a question from the audience up here. Derek says, so what's better operating system? Which operating system is better or favorable for this whole setup? So I guess they're asking
Mac versus PC, I think.
Is that what you think?
Yeah. Sure. And the short answer is both. You can't do everything on a Mac. You can't do everything on a PC. You can't do everything on one computer. So I kind of use the best operating system for the job. So for example, ProPresenter is available for Mac and PC, but the PC version can't accept MIDI notes. So it renders it kind of useless in this setup. So I have to use a Mac for that. For my lighting rig, I prefer using a PC. Just because like I built my own lighting computer, so I know what parts are in it and I can fix it and I know it's not going to die on me. So it just depends on the task. I use on a Sunday morning Windows, I use Mac, I use iOS, I use Android. So there's really no best operating system. It's, use the one that fits the job the best.
Right.
And as you go through things, you'll figure out what that is for you. So. But I am running my personal computer on a Mac. Yeah. So for Ableton Live, I kind of prefer a Mac too. And, if I'm working on a laptop, you can't really beat a MacBook Pro unless, you're a gamer or something. But a desktop rig, I like to have a PC. So like I said, I'm an all of them kind of guy.
You have so many. How many computers do you have running? Because I remember I've seen, I don't know if everyone's seen the behind the footage that I've seen, but I think you have like 4 or 5 maybe.
Can I count on my hands real quick? Because I don't know off the top of my head. I use my laptop, and then I have an iMac for lyrics, an iMac for stage videos. We have a lighting PC. I have a streaming PC. I have like an old computer that I use is like a mobile Blackmagic preview computer. We have a Mac Mini controlling the Blackmagic switcher. I'm getting close to the end. 7 or 8 dedicated computers. I might be forgetting one. And then we have tablets controlling, like the chord charts and stuff. And I use my phone to control our monitor mixer. So we use a lot of tech.
You must have some help. Some volunteer hands, maybe?
You must have some volunteers helping you.
Yeah. During church, I have a great crew of high schoolers who help me out during it. During the week, it's pretty much me. We have a small staff here, but we're a pretty large church for the staff that we have. But during services, I have a great crew, and they do what they're supposed to do, and so we're very fortunate. But I've got 3 high schoolers that help me kind of monitor stuff. So I'm like, okay, if something doesn't work or goes awry, you guys need to be ready to go to jump in. And like during the messages and stuff, we obviously can't run that to a click track, unless the speaker's really crazy. But typically we will just use manual control, and we'll use for the cameras the app that is on the iPad, and we kind of use that mixed in with TouchOSC and Ableton and make it work for us. But there's a lot of stuff going on, and I've added stuff in piece by piece by piece. It's I didn't do all of this all at once. It's over time. You just once you get comfortable, then it's like, okay, how do I add to it? How do I make it better? And then, okay, let's make it better. How do I do that? Let's figure it out. And then there's usually a week or 2 where it's a little buggy, and then you figure it out, and then you're like, oh man, this is awesome. What do I do next? And that's kind of the pattern I'm in. It's a never-ending cycle of what can I do? What else can I do?
I understand that. Yeah, it's very similar. Here in our studio, it's always, a couple more things, change it around this way. Why weren't we doing it that way? Get that all the time. Are we getting? Because we're getting a lot of questions, and I want to make sure those folks that are watching live, we're answering some of their questions, Tess. The other thing too I wanted to ask you about was your TouchOSC. That was just, how did you even find that?
Years ago, I had downloaded it because I was messing around making beats with Ableton. And then, Will Doggett, as I mentioned, had a video where he used it to control Ableton. So I was like, okay, I need to do that because, when you're performing live, it's always, how do I control these elements? How do I get them to go when I want them to go? Even Ableton, you have to control to some degree. And how do I make that really easy? Because, when I was first using Ableton, I was like using the mouse and the space bar. And that's just, I'm playing guitar. So if you're playing drums or keys, that's a little more doable. But, I'm in the front of the stage. I'm like on a laptop furiously doing stuff. It just doesn't have a good look. So then I used a foot pedal for a bit, which is great. But then I had like 4 yards of foot pedals, and that can be a little overwhelming when, like I said, I just kind of want to be freed, not stuck to different things. And then I eventually was like, okay, I just need to get it on TouchOSC. So then one morning I was like, all right, I'm going to control it all from an iPad. And then I just made the template and I made it work. And that's kind of where that went.
This question says, does your Ableton recall audio mixer presets?
It can. I'm not doing that right now, but it is definitely able to bidirectionally communicate with our soundboard. I've researched how to do it, and it's, that would be like the next jump up is I'd like to be able to say when the preaching is going on, just have the preaching mic go on, mute everything else, do that right from Ableton in the press of a button. So it can. And are we doing that? No. So hopefully that answers that question.
Can we review everything that you've learned how to control with TouchOSC? I just think it's incredible. Of course, if it's going to take forever, then maybe not. But you're starting and stopping songs in Ableton. But you're also starting and stopping individual songs. So do you have everything on one giant arrangement, and then you're picking portions of the song that you're starting, or how does that work?
Well, we do an opening song, and then that stops, and then we have all the children who are in the room come up, and they get to learn a Bible verse, and they get a little prize with that. And then there's a period where I'm talking, and then after that happens, there's 3 songs that play concurrently. So we start song 1 manually, then the kids come up, and then there's another cue, and then songs 2, 3, and 4 all go automatically, start to finish, start a song 2, end a song 4.
And then you're hearing cues in your monitoring system to know when they start.
Yeah, there's a very bossy lady that lives in our heads that is telling us what to play as we're playing the song. But that works really great, and our bands have gotten so much tighter when we started to implement that setup.
Yeah,
I can imagine.
A couple more questions.
Okay,
Do you want to cover them now?
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay. Derek's saying, so do you stream?
Yes, we stream all of our services. We stream Wednesday nights, Saturday nights, and the 3 Sunday mornings, 8, 9:30, and 11 at our Facebook page, Keys Vineyard Community Church. We stream to YouTube, Ustream, and to our website directly. And we use OBS to stream it. I'm very happy with OBS, works well. And I use a website called restream.io. I don't know if you guys have mentioned that, but that allows me to take the cue from, or the stream key from OBS, and then it blasts it to all the other sites. And what I use to stream to Facebook is a churchstreaming.tv, and that service works really well. It allows me to kind of set up the Facebook streams in advance, because I don't know if anybody else has run into it, but setting up a Facebook stream can be time-consuming and glitchy. So their service really made it pretty easy. And like Paul mentioned, I can control that from TouchOSC, which I see on the screen. TouchOSC is for tablets. It works on iPads. I believe there's an Android app available too. So yes, it does work on tablets. And I have it set up on that app to control it, so that if, say, my streaming intern doesn't show up, or my streaming high schooler doesn't show up, I can run it from stage. I can start my stream, and I can transition all from where I'm at on stage. I'm not having to run up, because that's happened before in the past, and that's a nightmare when, like, the stream's not on, you need to go up. It's like, and it's on the other side of the building. So I was like, okay, we can make this easier. And so I set that up with Bohm MIDI translator. Again, I'm using that mouse point and click thing to do those, and I make sure that OBS and your stream live are in the same spots every single time.
How many people are on your crew for services?
Are we talking audio visual, or just the music production in general? Because
I guess we would be talking audio visual.
Yeah, and then
right,
maybe
from a production
separate
standpoint.
Yeah. There's me. I do a lot of it. We usually have a sound guy, and then I have those 3 interns. But it is a lot going on. But because of Ableton Live, I can do a lot of it on Tuesday, and then just have it automated. So a lot of it is me setting it up in advance to have it going forward. And then, I have a crew ready to go in case there's an emergency. But now that we're getting things dialed in, it's working out really well, really smooth. And, I've designed it where I could run it 1 or 2 people. It's going to be a lot of work. And, having a few extra set of hands makes it a lot easier. But we could run it 2 people if we had to. With a band.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Got a lot of questions. People are intrigued.
Yeah.
Jay's asking,
Shoot.
can you override the automation, or do you have to wait till the song is over during the live show?
You can. And the easiest way to do it is a space bar. So if the band, or typically it's a vocalist, will get off time with the click in the track, things can get really messed up fast. And, the laptop's right there. So I'll just hit the space bar and we just kind of play it as a band without the click. And you know, we can like loop stuff. You know, I can set up a foot controller where if I want to, okay, we're going to repeat a chorus, I can press a button and repeat a chorus. So, you know, you can pretty much do whatever you want with it. It's just a lot of it is forethought and having it set up ready to go.
Great. Well, Doug, it's been really helpful, I think, for a lot of our viewers to hear your take on this, and especially ours since we're in studio. I mean, we learn about this stuff and we talk about it, but it's nice to speak to somebody who really gets a hands-on experience. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Doug. I think we got a chance to cover a lot. I know that it would probably take us hours and hours and hours to go over everything. So thank you so much. We've been trying to kind of make it easier for people. I think that, like you said, with William Doggett from multitracks.com, if people are really interested, it sounds like there's professionals out there who can really help them get started. And it's a process, and you have to kind of learn from the professionals before you can get to this level.
Yeah. And you know, you can always find it on YouTube and watch all those videos until you get it. It's just one of those determination things. I'm not smarter than anybody else, but when I want to do something, I'm going to figure it out. And that's kind of the mindset you have to have when you're learning something new is, okay, I can do this, and I'm going to figure it out. And so if I can do it, I think anybody else can. So
that's kind of the spirit we have around here. So I can appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much. We do have a giveaway for all you live viewers. So usually we wrap up the show here on Facebook and YouTube, and we'll head over to our Twitch channel, and we can do a cool giveaway. And we're actually going to have a trivia and ask you guys how much you know about MIDI and TouchOSC and Ableton. So all of those things. If you want to follow us to twitch.tv/sgeeks, we'll see you there. Thank you so much, Doug. We really appreciate your time.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks.
That was really fun.
Yeah, it was a really good one.
That means extra, extra.